Ladies and gentlemen, listeners, viewers, subscribers of AfroPolitical Communications, welcome to AfroPolitical Communications, the leaders, where we train and advise political leaders. We train and promote political leaders, and then we create change in the world. We are the doctors, the philosophers who change the world by providing the best advisory techniques to create the best society, the best community, the best global village, where everyone live free and harmony in the society. That's why we spread the message internationally. AfroPolitical Communications, we are here. You can call us at 604-355-4434 plus 1604-355-4434. Yasini Chiraga Misago, the president and the founder of AfroPolitical Communications. Welcome and be with us today. You will enjoy the truth in politics. Today we are going to talk about democracy. We are going to look at the conflict in South Sudan. Today we are going to look at the conflict in South Sudan, and not only in South Sudan, but the nature of conflict everywhere, whether in America, Canada, Britain, China, Cambodia, Vietnam, Russia, Ukraine. There is a conflict in Ukraine. There is a conflict in Syria. There is a conflict in Iraq, conflict in Libya, conflict in Egypt, conflict in Somalia, conflict in Central African Republic, conflict in Democratic Republic of Congo, conflict in Rwanda, conflict in northern Uganda, conflict in South Sudan. But our interest today, we are going to look at the conflict in South Sudan. We are going to analyze this conflict in South Sudan, the power of General Salva Kiir, by using what you call the elite theory. Elite theory. We are going to examine the conflict of South Sudan, the power of SPLM, the power of Salva Kiir, President Salva Kiir of South Sudan, by using what we call elite theory of Karl Marx. We are going to examine South Sudanese conflict, to analyze South Sudan conflict using the elite theory principle. How this theory applies to the conflict in South Sudan, and how should we use this theory to solve the problem of South Sudan, rather than wasting time to witness the film which has escalated into conflict that has taken over 10,000 lives of people. The world is watching. They know these problems, but because of we are living in a democracy where, based on assumptions of self-interest, based on the assumption of a free market, the poor remain poor, the rich remain get more or remain rich. This is why you see that in South Sudan, people are dying every day. The world just watching. We are going to look at what we call Karl Marx and the elite theory. What does the elite theory mean? The elite theory, it means that power, there is inequality in power, inequality in society, inequality in decision making, inequality between the organized governing body or the managerial body and the workers. And this is the real cause of conflict that you see among all the countries I have already talked about. Elite theory. In Zimbabwe, the elite theory, Robert Mugabe and his ZANU-PF elite. What does elite means? We are going to see the definition. Well-organized group in business, in government, in the military, which shares favor, political favor, business favor, to fulfill or to control others. This is what we call the elite theory. The well-organized business, political, military, profession, which share same profession, favor to control others, to exert their influence over other group. This is what we call the elite theory. And the elite theory has sparked off conflict that you have seen among many countries I have mentioned. Today, we are using this principle, elitism, the elite theory, to examine the dictatorship of President Salva Kiir. Without wasting time, I have my research here. Power is present in each individual and every relationship. Power is present in each individual and every relationship. It is defined as the ability of a group to get another group to take some form of desired action. Power is present to power is present to each and every individual, every relationship. Every relationship there is power. Each person, each group has power. How do we define power? It is just defined as the ability of just a person, a group of people, to take some form of just a group of people to get another group, the ability of an individual or other group of people to get others or other group of people, just people, to take some form of desired action. I have said that power is the ability of a group or a person or a party to get another party to form a desired, or another party to take some desired actions. For example, if this is my party, Republican, it is in power, they can use the population of the United States to take their desired action based on the Republican principle. If it is in South Sudan, because the SPLM are in power, they are in power, President Salva Kiir can use his party, the SPLM, to to use other population of South Sudan to take any desired actions of SPLM. Some of the desired actions might not be good and may affect the people's lives, psychologically, physically. So if this group uses its ability to just against another group to take its desired action, it is power. It has power. It is powerful. This is what we mean when you talk about power. Usually by conceptual power and sometimes by force. The party which has power, it can use others to fulfill its actions or to perform the desired actions, either peacefully or by force. I am talking about the concept of elitism, the elite theory, and how it is applicable to the situation in South Sudan. Elite theory, a theory based on the assumption that people of the same profession, in business, in government, in military, share mobility of power, share mobility of favoritism, to exert their influence, to control others. And this is often create inequality and marginalization of other group of people, and the result, conflict. We are talking about elite theory in South Sudan and how it is applied to the conflict which has taken over 10,000 group of people in South Sudan. The whole world is watching. Washington, United States, they are just celebrating to see the movie when these people are dying, but they know that there is the elite theory already defined the inequalities which is in South Sudan today has caused this dilemma, but the world has failed to solve this problem. African Union failed to solve this problem, to look at into the principles of elitism. How SPLM dominated the politics of Southern Sudan by using the population to do things which they don't want through forceful means and intimidation. This is what we call elite theory. They call themselves comrades, torturing, forcing other people to do things that is out of their ability to do, that affect their lives. The result of this circle is what we call conflict. AfroPolitical communications. We show you the truth, you disseminate the message, we answer the question. 2. This decision, elitism, sometimes what we call in society, government, organizations, and an elite class of people make decisions that affect the lives of the large mass of other people. The government can make decisions, the organization and the political party can make a decision that affect others, that affect the majority. The president himself can make a decision that affect others. In return of this, the vicious circle is conflict. A significant amount of research, my research shows, these decisions are often made by just to serve their own economic interest, value, in just which include the means of production, property ownership. These decisions, sometimes leaders, they make these decisions in order to protect their self-interest, their position in power, and their political party in power. If you know that Salva Kiir in South Sudan, he suppressed the whole government, the members of parliament and the vice president, because they did not disagree with him. This is what we call elite theory. He was trying to consolidate what we call political consolidation in power and chase those who may have different views about his system of governments. And then he promoted those who may support his ideas, elitism, elite theory. The result of this behavior, no expectation, the conflict, people in a democratic system of government today, people, they have the right to go into what we call revolution, conflict, strike, to challenge these behaviors, as it is the case in South Sudan. Number 3. Today, we are going to look at what we call Karl Marx and elite theory perspective. Karl Marx and elite theory perspective. These theories shows that power is distributed unequally in the society. The elite theory shows that power is distributed unequally in the society, and the result of this behavior, it is conflict and strike. Revolution, conflict, strike, in order to challenge this unethical political behavior, a case to South Sudan. AfroPolitical communications, we are giving you the truth. The upper class in the government, the ruling party, sometimes make unethical decisions, inequality, to promote inequality, by promoting the elite, the comrades, and share the favors of the government, and then they leave the marginalized group. In order to break up that marginalization, the marginalized group in a democracy today are right, they have the right to go into conflict, revolution against the state, to challenge these behaviors. This is why you see there is a conflict in South Sudan. Point number 3. Karl Marx. Karl Marx himself. I think we should, I will go direct to the point that I want to address today. It is the theory of the elite theory that I will just go direct. Among the elite theory, the theory which was developed by Karl Marx, power elite group, saying that the power elite group and the managerial class, this is what we're going to see. The power elite group and the managerial class, both groups have just given a decision. They have decision-making power that affect the lives of others and unaccountable for their decision. The elite power and the managerial class, both of them have the power to make decisions, but these decisions sometimes affect the lives of the population. But what is the result if these decisions affect the majority, the population? The result is going to be a conflict or strikes against to challenge these decisions. You can think, take your mental faculties in South Sudan and think what is happening there. Point number 4. The elite is defined as the network of business. Elite, the network of business, government, military, and the media leaders who exchange favors. Elite theory, or elite, the network of business, government, military, profession, who exchange favors, have common education and social background. This is what we call the elites. These people conscientiously just conspire to maintain control over the masses. They always conspire to maintain their control over other people within the state or within the government, as you can see the case in South Sudan today. The SPLM political party, the media, and those who support them behind, they conspire under elite community to control others. And then, being marginalized, the controlled people, they always turn into a revolution or strike. That's why Karl Marx said that history is a history of struggle, conflict of struggle. Similarly, government elite who hold a broad political view, that's what we are talking about today. So that government elite who hold broad political power and non-governing. Similarly, the high-paid managerial class are identified as those who produce profits of the company, thereby giving a lot of power, control for the others. Consequently, power is passed down from the owner to the manager who is in control on a daily basis. Power is passed from the owner to the manager who is just in control of the daily basis. South Sudan today, the people, they have the power, but their power was taken away by what you call the SPLM government. And these people, they no longer have that power to participate in the decision making of the state. Everything is controlled by a single political party. And therefore, people are fighting to grab this power back, to be able to be included in the decision making for the betterment of the state. That's why there is a war in South Sudan. In order the elite to maintain this control, they need to be aware of their membership to the group, act in the way of furthering their own interest. In order to control, to influence their ideas, they have to know their network. They have to know their interest. They have to exchange information between members to conspire and control. To conspire and control within the state. We are talking about the elite theory. Clearly, just in South Sudan, the constitution required have not been adhered just in numerous contexts in South Sudan. It provides a list of examples of the mobile crossover of the senior political, media, and business people sitting on the board on the large and powerful organization as a group of membership in South Sudan. The government, what is in South Sudan today, is like a boat. All people sit on the same boat, showing their interest, drinking, enjoying the drinks because they all belong to the same elite class of Salva Kiir. I don't know whether it is a Kiir or... You see, we are looking at both just perspective, unequal power. We are looking at the unequal power in South Sudan from one group over another. It explains, my elite theory explains how the powerful class dominate over the rest of the population known as the mass or masses, the plebiscite, both physically and mentally. Both physically and mentally. The elite theory that I'm talking about in South Sudan today, it describes how a single group of people control what you call the masses, the plebs, in what they call the power of the state. Political elite group, for example, people is explained and acceptable just in both Marxist and elite perspective. For the Marxist, this is due to the common ground regarding to the degree of mobility and the idea of the state, just a state's job in sharing out of wealth produced by the working class, kept dependent of this through the private-owned companies. This privatization, raising large multinational corporation has produced an increase in the power sharing and management. So you can see what is happening into what we call elite government. Despite this, it appears that the increase in mobility of the elite, utilizing the power of the mass media, the government, multinational organization to meet its needs. So the elite can use all the power of the existing population just to meet its demand. The elite, it can just what we call the elites. They can control three forms of power. The elite, for example, the elite in South Sudan, in the government of South Sudan, can control three forms of democratic institutions: the executive branch of the government, the judiciary, and the executive, for example, executive and judiciary. They can control all these institutions, but these institutions, in order the government to function well, they have to be independent. The government, the judicial should be independent, the executive should be independent, and the legislature, judiciary, executive, and the legislature. There should be very independent system of government, institutions of the government. And the legislature, people always work through the legislature, the masses. If there is no parliament, then there is no government. If the president dominates the parliament, then there is no decision of the masses. And it means that the state, the government has controlled the power of the masses. This is what we call dictatorship. If the government, the president himself grab the power of the executive, grab the power of the legislature, and grab the power of judiciary branch of the government. These three branches of the government should be very independent. The situation which is in South Sudan today, the president controls all these three institutions. And that's why he used his personal power in the constitution to expel the vice president, Dr. Riek Machar. To expel all ministers and put them in jail. The elite theory and how it applies to South Sudan. Inequality. One group of people controlling other or use others to fulfill its objective. It is the real topic today at AfroPolitical Communications. We say the truth, you disseminate the message, and we answer the question. Karl Marx, an 18th century sociologist and philosopher, was one of the original theories developed on conflict perspective on how society function. In the society there are three groups of people. There is the group which control authority, one group unequal power. One group control others. There is always a group which fight for that inequality. And then what we call the perspectives on how society is function, how the society should function. What do you see in South Sudan today, and how should this country should function? How this country should function? It's the central point at AfroPolitical Communications today. Following Karl Marx was Rafa Dahermodont, 19th century, post the beginning of the capitalism, who developed the theory further This perspective is mostly concerned with Marx's deep structure on unseen power within the capitalist system. The central area of focus from this perspective today, we are going to talk about three important things. Elite theory and how it applies to the conflict in South Sudan. Unequal distribution of power, unequal distribution of decision making. President grabs and the government grabs the decision from the masses into what we call the elitism, elite theory, the elite class, and then the marginalized group in democratic principle, they have to fight to challenge these unethical behaviors. Afro-political communication is, we are trying to show you the conflict which is in South Sudan today and how democracy applies into these principles to solve the problem using the concept of elitism, elite theory by Karl Marx at Afro-political communications. Number one, our area of focus today, the class that exists in society. Which type of class do you see exist in South Sudan? The class which exists in South Sudan, which class of people do you see there? 2. Inequalities of society. What do you see the form of inequalities? What form of inequalities do you see in South Sudan today? What form of inequalities can you tell in South Sudan? Number 3, how society function to serve the powerful class and disadvantaged the others. How the society function to serve the advantaged class and just the powerful class and disadvantaged others. How the society function to serve the powerful class and disadvantage others or disadvantages others. How should you benefit? How do others benefit in the society, in the government, and the society, the same society affects others? Don't you see the conflict here? How does the society you live in today affect you and benefits others? And what is the impacts, the results of these inequalities? This is what we are analyzing, and we are trying to bridge this gap in South Sudan. The leaders of this world, they don't see these mistakes. Thereby causing conflict. The result for this is nothing apart from conflict. The result, for example, the class that exists in society, the way it functions to support the powerful class in power and disadvantages others, it is the origin cause of the conflict in which we are living in today. You can argue that way. The class that exists in society based on inequalities of society. How that society functions for the powerful and disadvantages others is the origin cause of conflict you see in Africa, you see everywhere, and you see today in South Sudan. The conflict that is sparked off the genocide in Rwanda, that is the origin. Examples of these conflicts include war. What type of conflict are we talking about? Wars, revolution, the strike, and communism. War, revolution, small conflict, civil wars, strikes, and revolution. Today, this century, the 21st century, you have witnessed the conflict in Libya, the conflict in Egypt, the conflict in Tunisia, and you have witnessed the conflict in South Sudan. Why the conflict in Libya ended that way? Why the conflict in Egypt ended peacefully in Tunisia, but why the conflict in South Sudan has cost over 10,000 people? The leaders watching the movies. Kim, Secretary General of the United Nations, Ban Kim, he's watching movies. African Union watching movies, interesting. The peace deal they are signing are all in vain, but people are dying. They are looking for the solution, but the solution resides here at AfroPolitical Communication. The way the society functions in South Sudan, the unequal distribution of power after the independence, and the final results, for example, the final results of advantage supporting the society supports the elites, advantage in power, and disadvantages the majority, is the origin cause of conflict in South Sudan. And we call the international community that it is time right now to think about these problems. For example, these conflicts include, as already, war, revolution, strikes, and communism. These classes of conflict are broadly broken into ruling capitalist class, working class, in which aim to further their interest at the expense of other group. The ruling class and the working class all are strangled into conflict, each working at the expense, each working its self-interest at the expense of another. You have already seen how the SPLM government working at the interest of others, exploiting the population. But the world, they are still asking the solution. Yet they know what is happening today in South Sudan. This is democracy. If the West, the Americans, the Canadians, the British, the French, the Australian are the founders of what you call democracy today, what is democracy? What is the difference between democracy and communism? The working class who only have their labor. They have their labor power to sell their disposal of employers in its situation where no union exists, and they need to avoid unemployment. The working class in South Sudan, they are like consumers. They need to buy things from the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper are the politicians, President Salva Kiir and his own government. But these shopkeepers today, they sell defective stuff. They sell decayed stuff. They sell outdated commodities. That's why people, they don't want to buy them. Their ideas are outdated. Their ideas are defective. That's why the population think that there is a need to get new commodities. They don't want American, Chinese commodity. They seem to have different type of commodity they want in the new country, which President Salva Kiir is not ready to provide, and instead is ready to give them war in order to cooperate. This is a right theory. Bordering these two classes, the result is conflict, as I've already told you, Karl Marx analysis. Karl Marx look at how the working class is disadvantaged, how the working class is on disadvantage at the expense of the ruling class. The working class in South Sudan has no power. Power has been distributed unequally. grabbed by the state SPLM government. That's why the Vice President Salva Kiir, Riek Machar, he, as an elite, as part of the elite, he get out of this movement and realized that there is a big mistake. In trying to respond, defend himself, President Salva Kiir unequally chased him out of the government, out of the bus. The result, the population went into conflict, as I've already told you, in order to challenge these actions. Class caused inequality in the society, and Karl Marx believed that individuals hold their own personal power, which is in harmony with each other and nature, rather than wrestling with what? Elaborate further by stating that people becomes enslaved when their actions are controlled by something outside themselves to benefit capitalists. People in South Sudan are being enslaved. Their ideas are being marginalized, and they are used as slaves by those what we call the elite class of SPLM. That's why they decided to use power to challenge this unethical as part of democracy in which we are living in today. And we call the international community that if they believe in democracy, where democracy doesn't work, the violence, the strikes are the only lasting solution, and the revolution. We have seen this. Why not in South Sudan? Furthermore, Marx believes in those who own the means of material products to own their means of intellectual ability to defend themselves. Another reason, that's why I want to talk about, Marx view the nation state as a collective power on which political parties rule on behalf of the society by making rules, regulations in favor of the ruling class, political party. The SPLM, its rules they make are all in favor of SPLM, but not the population of South Sudan. Had it not been vice versa, people they wouldn't have gone into conflict. Based on the rational decisions and by the growing faith in science explain the reality. We say the truth, you disseminate the message, and you answer the question. We are analyzing the elite theory, Karl Marx, based on the conflict we see in the world, in particular South Sudan. Those who say tribal war, then you can get a general idea of what is going on in South Sudan. This has resulted into shift of power from rational boundaries to the global level. The South Sudan conflict today has shifted from the communal, provincial, local to the international or to the global. Now the population can no longer able to handle this issue. That's why now we hear the conflict is in Addis Ababa to resolve this problem. This has been our final part. We have been looking at the conflict in South Sudan. The conflict in South Sudan. 500 ways just will change the world. As I told you that this book, Change Our Mind, look at Change Our Mind. Change Our Mind. 500 ways to change the world. Change Our Mind and 500 ways to change the world. It is a book that we often use here to examine the conflict everywhere in the world, in everything, and it is the conflict that we have been just analyzing today in South Sudan. So those who want to know more about what we do and where we get the facts, AfroPolitical Communications. Number one, now we are going to advise you how you should solve the problem of South Sudan. Point number one. How should we solve the problem of South Sudan? Me and you, how are we going to solve the problem of South Sudan? Join the just civilian peace service to control conflict. Join civilian peace service to control conflict. 1. Join the media, use the Facebook, join the community group, join the international group to be able to control the problem of South Sudan today. Number 2, set up a peace party for political change. Number 2, medicine. Number 2, set up a political party or a peace party for political change. Set up a peace party for political change. You can do as we see AfroPolitical communication. We're using AfroPolitical communication to create political change in our communities. You can do this in South Sudan, on Facebook, and the media, in the website, and you disseminate the message, and you stand, you die for the fact, for the people of South Sudan. Medicine. Number 3, participate in peace one day. Participate in peace one day. Set up a day in the South Sudan, everywhere, in the bedroom where you live, and pray for God, and you go attend the media, radio stations, challenge and fight for the peace in South Sudan, and anywhere where you see a conflict in Palestine and Israel. Medicine. Number 5. Medicine. Number 5. Call a half to hostilities by using phone. Call half by hostilities using your phone. Call to United Nations, call to African Union, call to Uganda, call everywhere. Talk to them. They should end the conflict immediately. Call Ban Kim of United Nations Secretary General in New York. Tell him, you Mr. Ban Kim, this is the time to end the conflict in Africa. The time to end the conflict in South Sudan. Talk to them direct. Call United Nations, United States of American President. Tell him that his children are better, they enjoy better life. The 2 daughters, Africans, they like their daughters to enjoy the same rights and happiness as Obama's children. Call him using your phone, using Skype. We are fighting, we are on the front to fight for peace in Africa, in South Sudan. Number 2, lodge lobby against the president of South Sudan to be in power. Write to ICC, International Criminal Court. Report the misbehaviors and political unethical for President Salva Kiir, and call for him to step down. That is another medicine. Create an art of arm. Distribute the art that arms, military arms, are bad and are not useful to Africans. We should throw down the arms, the AK-47, let us throw them down and negotiate. That is another medicine. Medicine. Number 8. Address terrorist causes with 10% of G8 defense fund. Address the issue of terrorism, state-sponsored terrorism in South Sudan. Address the issue of state-sponsored terrorism in South Sudan. Address this issue. Address this issue and connect it to the conflict, how President Salva Kiir used his own army to terrorize the nation. Psychological fear among his people. This is another form of terrorism. And medicine. Number 9, role-play conflict for global solutions. Put the conflict in role-play. Role-play. Put this conflict into role-play as a game, and distribute this message to the world that South Sudan is no longer a village, a film, a Hollywood film to play conflict and education taking the conflict into America for students there to study. No, we want solution, a global solution. We can use that medicine works. I used it in Libya, I used this method in Tunisia, and then there is no conflict today. Medicine number 11, South Sudan, how to finish the war. Medicine number 11, sow seeds for landmine detection. Try to show the victims of landmines. Take them to New York. Send the victims, send pictures to Ban Kim into New York, Secretary General of United Nations. Send the pictures of landmines. Show how Salva Kiir has set these landmines. Show why Uganda, how many people, landmines of Uganda, people have died because of Museveni's actions. Show this and call upon an immediate action. That is medicine number 11. Those are the techniques that we have been giving you here today at AfroPolitical Communications. I have a book here, Karl Marx, and Friedrich Engels, The History of Man, History of Struggle. The ruling party against the minorities. I have already shown you in my conclusion, I have already shown you the elite theory. I've been talking about the elite theory and how it is applicable in South Sudan. How should we analyze the elite theory in conjunction to the conflict in South Sudan, and how, after listening to this program, how are we going to put our ideas together to examine the conflict? What is the original cause of the conflict, rather than looking at the conflict as a tribal war, as a mineral war, but what is the nature, the behavior of this leader? If we look at Salva Kiir into his eyes, this way, what do you see inside? This is democracy. We love you, and we need you to think and grow. Think and grow, rich world leaders. Nothing you can do. Yasin, President, founder of AfroPolitical Communications. I love you. Leader for change. We want global change. We want change in South Sudan, change in Africa, change in the Middle East, change in everywhere. I sent this message to President Barack Obama, Ban Kim, Secretary General of United Nations, Secretary General of African Union, East African Community, IGAD, African leaders, President Yoweri Museveni. It's time to think about the elite theory and how it applies to the conflict in South Sudan. This is the only method that we can use to resolve the conflict, which has cost tens of thousands of people in South Sudan. President Obama, think about your children. They are in Washington, White House. We love this liberty. We love this happiness to be in South Sudan. Thank you. Thank you, and God bless you. Thank you.